Good morning and welcome to the Rock Spring Preserve in Scotland. It is operated by the Nature Conservancy. And just off the shoulder parking on Route 97, come to the trailhead kiosk with pages from the Old Joshua's Tract walk book. And there's a log book, but we'll check that out at the end of the hike. They have thankfully added a nice color map. I think this was in late 2019. And we're going to do the white outer loop and then go to the Overlook. The property is about 450 acres and has, 3 or 4 miles of trails. The trail is heading downhill into the Little River Valley, and as you can tell from the stone walls, this is former farmland, so all of this area would have been cleared. There's a good amount of storm damage actually from Tropical Storm Henri. As the ground starts to level out near the bottom of the valley, we get these trail junctions, one of a couple in the preserve. This is one of the old wagon paths that used to cross the farm, and we're going to head off in this direction for the Indian Spring. The preserve does get a fair amount of visitors, but as you can see, not quite enough, especially on this outer loop, to have more than a narrow trail. This section of trail features some rolling terrain. And that's because the terrain is glacially formed. We're on a series of eskers. And eskers are sand and gravel deposits that form small humps throughout an area. A little bit hard to capture on camera, but this area might give you a good example. It rises to this ridge and then descends again off the other side. Wow, so we are discovering a turning point in the history of Rock Spring Preserve. This old oak tree has finally fallen. It's been a prominent feature on the trail for a long time, since before this was a preserve. There's a picture from the early 1980s in the guidebook. So this is the guidebook, and we've got Rock Spring, and there it is. And it seems that in the last tropical storm, it has finally toppled. It hadn't been looking good for several years, but I guess it's finally come down. And here we come to the rock spring itself. There's a carved inscription, Old Bar, the First, Indian Spring. This stone column was erected to protect the spring. And the water coming out is just about ice cold. Very refreshing. The water comes out of the ground here, and I think likely underneath this rock here, and heads off towards, I think that's a Downing Brook, which must connect to the Little River. And speaking of the river, let's check that out next. The spring is down off in that direction. I'm not sure why there isn't a sign for that. We finally reached the Little River, although it's difficult to get closer than this due to growth along the banks. But just off the trail is this stone bench, dedicated as Mike's bench to a local teen in 2010. Nice, cool spot to sit and enjoy a view of the river. From here on out on the outer loop, the trail gets a little bit more difficult to follow, feeding into the little river there. This isn't normally the issue that I'm talking about. I've had it be so overgrown I had to push through, and actually one time it was completely flooded and I had to turn around. So if you're looking for an easier hike, definitely stick to the inner wagon trail paths, and if you want a little bit of an adventure, stay on the outer loop. And if not, I'll show you what it looks like. It does allow us to get closer to the river briefly. Got a good shot of the beaver dam in the little river here, and actually one of the beaver slides. The guidebook from the early 80s mentions activity starting to happen around then, and I'd guess some busy beaver is maintaining this. Exactly one print along the water here. What do you think? Dog or coyote? That's a big pine. Alright, finally climbed out of the thick growth along the river, and it's definitely difficult to get through. Not an easy hike, so unless you're adventurous, I'd skip it. But you do get some really nice secluded views along the river, so that's at least one small plus. Alright, we should be reaching the wagon path again soon, and then we'll be on to the Overlook. And here we come to the Overlook. View is blocked by tree growth for the most part. And this is the drop over the edge. We also got another absolutely gorgeous stone bench. And on the back is a dedication to David and Vonda Shoemaker, who donated the original 445 acres for this preserve. And the other 5 are from a neighbor. Well, that does it for the Rock Spring Preserve. I'm going to sit here and enjoy the view for a while, and I'll see you next time.